I'm excited today to have Jeannie Sullivan as our guest on the show. Jeannie is a business coach and course designer, but many of her clients refer to her as the idea fairy. Although her career didn't start out with the word fairy in the title, right after graduate school, she actually fell in love with the field of instructional design. So working with Fortune 500 companies, Jeannie had the chance to solve problems, launch big ideas, and inspire adults to take action, all under the guise of building training programs. A few years later, she became a professional certified coach. Since leaving corporate America, though, in 2010, she's coached more than 200 professionals on how to become leaders, leave their corporate jobs for solopreneurship, and design profitable learning-based revenue streams. She's also created training programs for many Fortune 100 companies on topics like customer service, sales performance, and women in leadership. Jeannie, welcome to the Go for Launch podcast.
Oh, thank you, Brandon. I'm excited to be here. And listening to you read out all those details, I'm like, wow, when did I do that? That
Yeah.
seems long ago and far away.
Yeah, you've been hard at work. Well, before we jump into that background, where are you in the world today?
So I'm in Columbia, South Carolina.
All
And
right.
I think that maybe you're just up the road in
Yeah,
North
we're
Carolina. Is that
we're
right?
that's correct. We're not far off from each other. I'm in Huntersville, North Carolina, just north of Charlotte, North
Oh,
Carolina.
nice.
So, yeah, I frequently pass through Columbia, going to the beach and other places. So, been there, done that many times. Great city. And one of the best bands ever came out of there, Hootie and the Blowfish. So,
That's right. You can't live in Columbia and not drop that fact on a
of
regular
course.
basis.
Yeah. And I remember
Yeah.
back in the day, I remember seeing them at these little dive bars and stuff when they were like nobody. And then they hit David Letterman and boom, they were off the charts, literally. But we are here today not to talk about Hootie and the Blowfish, unfortunately, but we're going to talk about online courses. And Jeannie, to me, it seems like, launching and starting online courses was one of the hottest things to do a few years ago. Everybody seemed to be doing it. And the rest of us were looking around going, wow, everybody has an online course. But now it's like, is that still the case? Like online courses are still a very hot and popular thing to do, or is it kind of cooled off and become a little saturated?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, for jumping in with like the hard-hitting question. That's a great question. And I've got really a lot of thoughts and ideas around it. Online learning is not something that is new for me personally. I grew up in the field of instructional design, and actually back in 2009, when I was getting my coaching certification, I noticed that all of these students who were in my coaching school, they all wanted to launch programs, but they didn't know how to create a workshop or they didn't know how to create an online program. And so I first started teaching entrepreneurs and coaches how to do it way back then. Well, then a few years later, you're right. Like everybody's got a course, and man, it's as if the whole world said, wow, if you want to get rich quick, just make an online course and put it out there. And, the people will just start coming. And I think that what we're seeing now and what the data has shown is that self-directed courses, meaning completely online courses where the instructor really doesn't have any input with the learner, those are actually the only category of courses that are declining
Hmm.
when it comes to like people signing up and taking them. What we're seeing is that the market has sort of gotten saturated, and a lot of people have bought courses. They've never taken them, they haven't finished them, they didn't open them. You know, Learners are aspirational. And so I recently learned about this concept of aspirational clutter. So I think a lot of times we have like aspirational courses sitting around for all the things we want to do. But what I like to work with people on is to really take a deep dive into how can an online course or a digital learning experience not only help the learner, but help support your business in multiple different ways. Not so much as oh, wow, I'm going to launch an online course and I'll be a millionaire tomorrow, which I think is kind of the story we were told a few years ago.
Yeah. What did you call that phrase? The aspirational clutter. I love that. It's like, I feel like you're helping to Marie Kondo the online learning space a little bit, one step at a time, because I'm with you. I have bought courses in the past. Sometimes I hate to admit for hundreds of dollars, and in some cases, a couple $1,000s. And I'm not sure that ever got through all of them completely. You go in again with that huge aspiration, like I just bought this and I'm raring to go, and then life gets in the way or whatever, and you set it aside and you honestly forget. And as a course creator, Jeannie, I've also seen that as well, where people sign up and I'm like, hey, I'm here, happy to help. Just let me know if you have any questions. I see them log in, I see them do the 1 or 2 modules, and then they never come back. And I'm like, what happened? Right. So
Yeah.
are you seeing now? Well, I want to ask this, and then I want to come back to another more basic question. But are you seeing more of these? You said not so much, the set it and forget it sites or learning courses where I set up a thing and the student has to do it all self-directed. Are you seeing more of the instructors participate at some level so that they're giving more hands-on guidance, or what's the evolution looking like?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. There's kind of two different categories of course development that I'm seeing right now, particularly with coaches and entrepreneurs. So on the one hand, I've got a lot of clients who they have these tried and true programs that they've built their businesses on that were face to face. And last March, everyone was grounded and we're all home, and so there are these consultants who have training programs. They've built their businesses on them. They don't have a digital version, and they're left thinking like, what am I going to do? So for those people in particular, those consultants, it's really about figuring out how can I create a blended learning program where you might get online and give a keynote, right? And then your experience in the digital realm is an online sort of self-study program. But there's that touch point. So just like you and I are sitting here right now, I mean, it's as if we're having coffee, but it's a conversation, even though we're in different locations. And so you still want some of that one-to-one element because it really carries people and moves people forward. So that's on the coaching, like the consultant side for people who have existing programs. But then on the coaching side, and for people who are starting pilot programs, maybe programs that are going out the door for the first time, I think we as a society have become just much more eager and open to connecting online in a virtual way. Whereas, a year ago, if someone had told me I was going to go to all-day virtual workshop, I would have thought, oh my goodness, that sounds
horrible,
pretty terrible. Yeah. But now we've become accustomed to connecting with each other in this virtual way. And so suddenly it becomes much more, what I want to say, practical for both the person who's teaching and the people who are showing up to do the learning to have that real-time one-to-one interaction sort of in a group virtual setting. So it looks a lot like learning in a classroom style instead of, and I'm sure that you've taken these courses before, but it's just like video after video after video,
right?
Which is great on one hand, but on the other hand, I think at some point you kind of start, like a part of your brain starts to fall asleep to the repetitive nature of some of the online classes that really just only use that one format. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with you. I'm seeing more of the blended approach. I think the one thing that scares some people is that one-to-one concept, but you kind of couched it saying it's maybe a little bit more one-to-many in that blended concept. Like you mentioned, having a keynote, for example, or something like what we're doing now as more of a group Zoom call, for example. Hey, we'll do a live Zoom call for all the members twice a month or once a month or whatever. So you do to get that interactivity and you feel like, hey, I'm in the room with Jeannie and I can, you give me the chance to ask questions. Now that may not scale if you got 1,000 people on the Zoom or whatever, but maybe you break it out. Maybe you do breakout sessions or something like that. Or maybe you have a co-moderator or whatever. But I do see that becoming more of a thing. 'Cause like you said, we're overwhelmed. We're on Zoom like we are all day long now since COVID. It gets a little tiresome. And the last thing you want to do in the evening or whatever is go back online and sit there and watch video after video. That definitely puts you to sleep. So I'm glad and by the way, thank you for sharing in the beginning about the fact that, yes, there have been some burnout points and people buy courses, that they don't look at and stuff like that. That should not discourage people that want to create courses from doing that. But another thing that I feel like people have to initially overcome is the reluctance of thinking, you know what, there's probably somebody smarter than me that's already created something similar. So what can I possibly add out there into the universe, or how can I monetize my knowledge of XYZ? What do you tell those people that are a little fearful or like down in the dumps, don't have the esteem factor? What do you say?
Yeah. So part of my process in helping course creators is to really challenge them to come up with and identify what is their signature process when it comes to the topic that they're teaching, right? So, I am a firm believer that if you want to be a wonderful teacher, you need to stop sharing so much information.
Mm-hmm.
So when you purchase a course, when I purchase a course, I think when anyone out there, because there's so much free information, right? Like we could right now muddle through a Google search on any given topic and get some sort of knowledge, find a YouTube video that teaches us how to bake a cake if that's what we're out to do. But I think that what people are willing to pay for and are craving right now is someone who can give them a direct path from where they are to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do I really work with course creators to ask them, how do you really look at what you're an expert in and remove all the extra information? One of the analogies I love is a story that I heard in graduate school when I was learning about instructional design. And the teacher told us, he said, imagine that you've just pulled your camera out of the closet and you've had this camera for years and you've never learned how to take a decent picture, but you've finally gotten up the courage, like you are going to learn how to take a picture with this camera. You pull it out, you find a class, you show up to the class, and you find out that the teacher is teaching on the history of digital photography for the first 3 lessons.
Okay.
You're completely deflated. Like
Yeah,
you
you're
just
like,
want to take a picture.
I want to
I
know.
don't care.
Tell me about these f-stops and the apertures and all that other stuff. I don't care about that. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. But when we're experts, we think that everybody wants to know all the details. And we think that that is what sets us apart as experts, is that we have all this extra knowledge that other people don't have. But the people who are coming to learn from us, they want to know that we're an expert, but they want us to simply give them as much information as they need to take the very next step. And then
That's
they
good.
take that step and then, okay, Jeannie, tell me exactly what else I need to do to take the very next step.
Okay.
So I think that's how you can really differentiate between sort of all the information overload that's out there, and what can set your course apart is action and transformation.
Got it. So once somebody commits, let's say, all right, I'm going to do a course, what do I do next? What are the steps then, Jeannie, to create and launch an online course?
Okay, so my approach is a little bit different, and it can make people nervous sometimes if they're not number one really feeling great about their level of expertise, or if they're not comfortable like talking with people in a live environment. But my advice to people is to spend some time figuring out what is your signature process, what is what I call a transformation target. And that is simply, what will someone be able to do at the end of your course that they couldn't do in the beginning?
Hmm.
That is going to be your guidepost, right? So every time that you're asking yourself, should I put this list of 12 history facts in my course? Ask yourself, does it help them reach the target? If the answer is no, don't include
Take it
it.
out. Good, good.
Take it
Okay.
out. Yeah. And then what you do is I guide people through in creating what I call a compelling learning sequence for every one of their signature steps. So if you have 5 signature steps, you're going to create 5 compelling learning sequences. And then you're going to go sell your course
Okay.
and get people ready to sign up for you. And you teach your course in the moment.
Got it.
So this is not a go away and record it and then launch it. This is like, I'm going to do 30% of the work. Then I'm going to find people who want what I have to offer. And I'm going to truly engage with them in this way, record those sessions, package them up, and make it available online.
Okay. So let me hear you correctly there. You're
Okay.
saying don't create 100% of it and spend months or whatever agonizingly doing it perfect, flawless, and then put it out there in the universe. You're saying go ahead and get started. Say you've got the first third of it completed or whatever. If you want to sign up, do you maybe give people an incentive? Hey, you're going to be one of the early birds, so you get in at a good price, and I'm going to build it as we go. Is that kind of what you're suggesting there, Jeannie?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the benefit is I am going to be teaching you live online,
Okay.
right? You're not getting it pre-recorded. You're in a live online session that's being recorded. So let me tell you about one of the ways where this really is motivating and exciting for me. So have you heard of the mirror? It's a workout.
Yes, I've seen this. It's like, the Peloton was the hot thing and now it's the mirror. So you like, for
Yeah.
people who don't know what that is, explain it real quick.
Okay, so it's a mirror that literally comes and is in your house, and you turn it on, and you have an app on your phone, and you take a class through the mirror. So you're looking at yourself in the mirror, but then the instructor is being reflected back at you through the mirror.
Okay.
And you've got people all over the world who are also taking this class with you. You can see all their little pictures in the corner, it scrolls
Okay.
around. And what's fascinating, so I recently got one
All
back in
right.
November. I love it. I promise this is headed somewhere in a direction that is relevant.
All right. Yeah, no
Um,
worries.
so every day they host live classes, but then they take all of their live classes and they put them in the catalog where you can take a pre-recorded class.
Okay.
And what I have noticed is that I am more motivated by a pre-recorded class than I am, say, if I go and pull up a workout video that's polished and perfect. And there's the three people demonstrating, all the different positions and the music is perfectly blended. There's an energy and enthusiasm that comes across when you record something live for the first time.
Wow.
And so I was thinking about this and I was thinking about how, I was talking about earlier, sometimes like you just go to sleep when you're watching like this video and it's going on and it's your fourth one in the program. The problem, I think, is that it becomes perfect
Yeah.
instead of being personal.
Okay.
And so I'm really encouraging people to put the imperfect personal back into their training programs because it's a connection, right? It's an opportunity for you to connect with learners. And it never fails that you're going to say something when you're live in a class because a question comes up or because it hits you a different way, that you might not think to say when you're sitting by yourself in front of your video recorder, reading from a script.
Yeah, I love that, Jeannie. That's a great way to go about it. And I have to be honest and say I'm guilty of not necessarily being a total perfectionist, but having done the courses that are more like I'm sitting in a room by myself for weeks on end, doing all the course modules and trying to perfect it, as best I can, and then getting it out there, as opposed to doing what you're doing, which sounds pretty exciting and also frightening for a lot of people, quite honestly, to think, oh my God, I'm going to be like on the spot, like you said, live on Zoom or whatever, recording. Man, what could happen? Anything could happen. But to your point, that's kind of fun to think about in one way. It's like if somebody walks in the room right now or if the light falls over or whatever, you know what? I just got to keep going and it'll just be part of that. But it, I guess, conveys authenticity among other things, right? Like you said, and it makes it seem more unique and more real and believable. So that's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that theory about how you teach people to do stuff like that. One of the things, though, you mentioned a minute ago is pricing. And pricing, my gosh, for courses is all over the place. You can go on sites like Udemy and find super cheap courses for $12 or whatever. Or you can get stuff from, people like Don Miller who does StoryBrand, and it's thousands of dollars. And he's just selling that like hotcakes all day long, right? If I'm creating a course, though, what's your advice on how do I figure out how to price the darn thing?
Oh, that's such a great question. And, I have some thoughts on it from a theoretical standpoint, but I always say pricing is so personal. And I look to one of my, favorite people to learn from is Seth Godin. I love Seth Godin, love his
Yes.
blog, had the chance to meet him at a conference years ago. But he says something that I think is so important. He says, price your programs so that you can keep your promise.
Okay.
And I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, when you think about that transformation target, what you have, the change that you have promised a learner, you need to price your programs in a way that you can honor that,
Mm.
right? And so if that means that you are only going to teach 5 people at a time and you're going to teach them in a live online workshop, then you need to charge a price that allows you to be able to focus completely on getting them across the finish line.
Mm.
On the other hand, if you are going to, if your signature process has 3 steps in it and you're going to start off with a live online course and record that, and it's going to be, imperfect and have your personality as part of it, and it's going to supplement your business in a certain way, then you might want to make that point of entry really low because you want people to be introduced to you and find out who you are and really get connected with the way you share your story and the way you teach. So I think the biggest question is, one, am I going to be able to keep my promise, right, with the price that I'm asking? And number two, does this price point make sense for the way I want to use this course in my business? Is it
Mm.
a way for people to meet me, or is it a way for people to get the best of the mastery that I have to offer?
Got it. So there's not a real science per se to saying it needs to be X. It just all depends, is what you're saying. And I've found that too. And my LinkedIn course called Linked Improved, for example, I've just gone back and forth, like, tried to price it low, tried to price it high. And part of it, to me, I think about the psychology, and even people like Seth Godin would probably agree with this, that what you get what you pay for. And when people see a course that's $14 on Udemy, it could be the exact same course that you're selling or I'm selling for $1,000. And guess which one's going to be perceived as more valuable? The $1,000 one, right? And so you're going to have to sell, 100 of the other ones to get the price of one of. So I always think about it that way too. Like, if I'm going to be selling something at a higher price point, I am going to want to deliver that brand promise, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
also want the person that is going to perceive that, I'm going to pay this money. It's more valuable. And I'm actually probably going to be more likely to actually consume the material and engage with it. And that's what I have found too, is that when I give it away, less than $100, then yeah, I'll get a smattering of sales. But the people that are real serious and want to pay $1,000 plus, they're going to take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And so that also makes me look more credible. What do you think about what I just said there about all the above?
I think that's on the money. I did a quick little survey on LinkedIn the other day just to find out from the people who are part of, my network, what's most important to them about creating a course. And the number one answer was having a chance to give back. And I thought
Mm.
that was just fascinating. It really was interesting to me because I expected revenue to win,
Okay.
but revenue didn't. It was the chance to give back. And I think that that is connected to what you've said in this very important way, which is, if you truly are looking to create a course that changes lives, giving it away or selling it at a very low price is not really a way to get people who are actually interested in changing their life. It's
Yeah.
that investment, it's them having some skin in the game. And I think it can be a reputational risk to continue to put a course out there that people don't finish, that people don't cross the finish line, right? Because imagine this for a second. If, you know, let's say I've put a course out there and people, 90% of people don't get through the course, then eventually someone might come up to them and say, "Hey, I've been thinking about taking Jeannie's course. What did you think?" Chances are that person's not going to say, "Hey, well, I didn't show up
Yeah.
to
Right.
the program." They're going to say, "Well, I thought that too, but it turns out I didn't finish it. I don't really know if it's going to get you the results."
Mm.
So we do, I think, need to have an interest in getting our learners across the finish line, although we can't become overly invested, right? Because at the end of the day, it's that person's willingness and ability, no matter how much they spend, to really create that change in their life that they're
Right.
looking for. So I think it's a fine line. It's a balance that we've got to strike. And um, it's definitely one that most of the course creators I work with are wrestling with.
Sure. Another thing I find is that people just gravitate towards a software, for example, and then they just plunge in and start plopping stuff in there too fast. But, they probably need to just take a step back. And it's ideally beneficial to work with somebody like you who actually studied learning development, right? As opposed to just trying to cobble it together on your own. You could waste a bunch of time and effort. But when it does come to that software, I am curious if you can share, do you have any favorite course software that you favor, when doing this stuff and ultimately putting it online to sell?
Yeah, so I probably have a pretty unpopular answer to this question. Um, I encourage people not to sign up for any course software until they have actually successfully s- created and sold their program. So what happens is exactly what you said. I sign up for a learning management program. I'm spending, anywhere from 75 to $150 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I could do that for month after month after month, still not cross the finish line, right? Because in that environment, they're asking you to do all of your course creation and then launch your course, with everything in there. And so my advice to people is why not, using Skype or using Zoom, create your idea for a course, test it out like a test kitchen, a pilot course, your beta, get to the end of that first iteration,
Mm-hmm.
and then look at how am I going to make this available online consistently through a learning management program. So my advice would be don't even invest in the technology because it's a distraction too, or it can be. Right now, you got to learn a
Yeah.
new tool. Now
Right.
you got to, learn how to record videos. Now there's so many things to learn. And that doesn't even get into the marketing channel,
Yeah.
which is another big category. So my advice is just don't invest in that until you have made enough from your course, just doing it in a live online format to pay for it to be worth the investment.
Okay. So, when you say live online, are you saying typically you would do something like this as sell a Zoom where people can show up on a Zoom type of thing a
Yeah,
couple times or however long it takes?
yeah. Actually, I tested out a new strategy just this week. So let me tell you about it and just
Oh,
see
good.
if it helps things.
All right.
So I spent a lot of time putting together my strategic plan for 2021, and I wrote an email about it and sent it to my list. And I got some questions like, Jeannie, what'd you put in your plan and how did you build it? And you mentioned that it's in Canva. What does it look like? And I thought, oh, I think people want to learn more about this. So I sent out another email and I said, hey, I've decided to host a workshop on Wednesday at lunch. So it's $29 per person, and just show up and I'll tell you about my strategic plan.
Okay.
And so I had, less than 10 people show up for that initial workshop, but I recorded that workshop and I've already got people asking, Jeannie, I wasn't able to make it. Can I get a copy of your workshop?
And
So
you're like,
I'm just going to post that.
okay.
Yeah, continue to sell it. And it's at a super low price point, which is fine with me because I'm testing, right? I'm
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
testing and trying something new. So why not go ahead and just have that idea, um, execute on it quickly, give it a try, see if it works. And if it works, then turn it into your evergreen course.
I love it. And then if I did something like that, I'd probably recommend going to something like Gumroad, which is a cool little site that lets you sell stuff. And then I guess you could just, sell that link to the Zoom that you
Yeah.
already did, right? Perfect. And you could charge whatever you want to. So that's awesome. Well, in addition to that nugget, what other examples can you give us of some successful courses, or even one or two that you did in the past that didn't go so well and lessons learned? So either good or bad or both.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me tell you about two of my clients who had some really challenging course topics and what they did with them. So way back when I was in coaching school, one of my colleagues came and I taught a class that's called Create a Coaching Workshop in 4 weeks. And she signed up for that class. And we get into the phase where she's doing, and all doing introductions. And she says, you know, hey, my name's Christina, and I'm building a course on intuition.
Okay.
I was like,
Oh,
whoa, how are we going to create an online course on intuition,
Mm,
but we were able to work it out and figure it out and find a way forward. And she's been running that course for, I guess, 10 years now. It's
that's
called
cool.
Ignite Your Intuition.
Okay.
Um, so that was definitely one that surprised me. And then I have another client who um, she just really resisted all that prep work that you're talking about, like recording the videos and writing the scripts and getting the worksheets together. Um, and so she and I were brainstorming. She was kept procrastinating on this. And finally, we came up with this idea that she would host a pop up workshop, a
Okay.
live workshop. She would invite 4 people to come and pay a premium price
Hmm.
to learn from her for 2 days. And so this worked really well for her. So she sold those tickets. She made $10,000. She covered all of her development costs for her program and was able to get the program videotaped and edited. And then she put those videos online and made it and turned it into her evergreen program. So that's just one example of how, if the thought of like sitting down and recording all these videos and writing all these scripts just doesn't work for you, get creative. There's all kinds of ways that you can work around, um, sort of work around that system.
Those are some great examples. Thank you. And you've been sharing a plethora of knowledge. So I think hopefully people are going to go back like myself and take notes, because there's a lot of great ideas here, Jeannie, that I wouldn't have thought about. And I've been doing this stuff for a while, but have not been the best or biggest course type creator, because I've had a lot of those fears like, oh man, somebody already has that course. Like, how am I possibly going to be perceived as the expert? But when I did the LinkedIn thing, for example, it kind of goes back to your point. What is your process? And the thing is, I had been hired multiple times over the years by executives to do this one-on-one coaching. And so, and I know that once you do that over and over a handful of times and more, it's the steps are kind of the same, right? So it's like I'm telling people 80% of the same information every single time. So why not just bundle that up in a course that anybody can buy, and you don't have to pay me as much if you're going to be, and then I don't have to do the one-on-one time. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of goes back to like, I was tired and a little burned out of doing it because it's tedious. Whereas I could tell you, hey, the same thing I did for these 10 other people, here's the steps, go for it. And that seems to resonate with people.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that I really ask people to think about what it is that they could create a course on. As I say, think about your one-on-one work, and what are the things that you keep saying over and over again, and put that into a course. And even if you use it as an on-ramp so that you can have more meaningful conversations with your
Mm-hmm.
client. I'm not suggesting that your conversations aren't meaningful already, but and I feel this too. It's like you share the same information over and over again. So sometimes an online course, even if you don't sell it on its own, it can be a wonderful complement to your one-on-one work and really help people so that you can dive in once they've already got the foundation
Right.
already in place.
That's correct. And that happens to me too, where some people buy the course and then they go, you know what? I don't want to do all this work myself. How much would it cost for you to do it for me? And I'm like, well, then you're going to get your wallet out because it's going to be more costly. And
Yeah.
most of the people say, fine. If they're a C-level executive or whatever, sometimes money doesn't really matter, which is fine. And then I'm more comfortable like, okay, I will take the higher dollar value to do the one-on-one. Whereas, for a lot of people, I'd be squeamish asking those types of prices that
Yeah.
other people are more than happy to pay. But this has all been great advice, Jeannie. I could talk to you for so much longer about this. You have so much knowledge and expertise, but we do have to cut it short. But I want to make sure that you share with the listeners where people can learn more about you online.
Oh, thanks, Brandon. So my website is jeanniesullivan.com, and there's some free resources that you can download there. And I also just published, self-published a book back in November, and you can find it on Amazon. I think it's free on Kindle Unlimited right now, but it's called Create a Course in 28 Days.
Oh,
And it
nice.
really takes a lot of these concepts that I've been talking about in our time together today and puts it into a very easy to follow sequence.
All right. Well, if that sounds exciting, which it is, to create a course in less than a month and get it online and start making some money, whether it's a side hustle or your real business or whatever, this is awesome. But Jeannie Sullivan, thank you so much for sharing all of your time and wisdom with us on the Go for Launch podcast today.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me. This has been so much fun.